some of these names, and you've definitely heard of some of the schools they're going to. Let's talk about, first of all, how about PJ Blue out of Park Crossing? This is a kid, defensive back. He was committed to South Carolina at one time. He's signed with Louisville. Then Christian Bell obviously signed with Alabama, but he's a part of this class, but he's really from the class before. Noah Barnes, a kid out of Auburn High School, he has signed with Maryland. Maryland has come into the state of Alabama and signed a couple of kids because they also got a kid named Ty Pigram. I know if you're familiar with football in the state of Alabama, high school-wise, you know who Ty Pigram is. And he signed with Maryland. Couldn't be prouder for the young man. Called him at the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. Brett called him for a state championship against Spanish Fort. Really, really proud of Ty Pigram and his ability to sign with the Maryland Terrapins as Brett walks up and joins me now.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Okay.
And, got to get us on TV, too. So for all the people out there that tune us in on Charter Channel 3 and online on our YouTube channel, Luke, so we want to make sure that gets put on there. But
well, Brett, what I was talking about was, since I was up here by myself, I'm going to talk about something I'm more passionate about, that I know more about, and that's college football recruiting. And you and I can talk about Alabama and Auburn, and I know we'll get into that. But today I just noticed how many other kids that we know and that I'm sure a lot of our listeners know out there across the state of Alabama signed with big-name programs. You look at Jaquiz Cross out of Buckhorn. I've heard his name before. He signed with Kentucky. I'm just looking down a few of them very quickly. Jamal Couch, who is at one time committed to FSU. He ends up signing with Mississippi State, a tight end out of Central Phoenix City. I've already mentioned Ty Pigram. Kingston Davis, running back out of Prattville. He signs with Michigan. Talked about another kid signing with Maryland a little bit ago. Obviously, a lot of kids signing with Troy and Alabama A&M and Grambling. And but Michigan also signed another kid out of Prattville.
Yeah, well, I was going to say
Tarius Johnson.
No, I was about to dive into that when you brought up the first kid's name in Kingston Davis. Michigan has gotten some kind of connection. They had another coach. There's a Prattville coach that just got hired by Michigan, Luke, that's moving, that's going to join that staff. Harbaugh came down. They ran a camp down here at Prattville High School. You know, when he was doing that touring around thing around the southeast, going around the high schools. One of them was Prattville High School, where they ran a camp down there, and they've started some type of a pipeline. And you know, it just takes one school in Prattville, one of the most renowned schools in not only in Alabama but in the southeast, and you start a little hub there, and you just kind of spread from there. And Jim Harbaugh is, and I don't know how I can put this, but he's kind of like a virus that's infecting the southeast. And he understands to be able to compete and win up there in the Big Ten, he's got to come down and get some of these guys out of the southeast to be able to and transplant them into that Michigan program. And he's doing that, Luke. They're going down spring break, and they're going to have spring football camp down at IMG Sports Academy
for 1 week.
For 1 week. And, you know, I heard somebody on another talk show say this, and I thought this was neat. If I were using that as ammo against Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, you know what I'd say? I'd say, well, see what those guys have to do? They have to come down to Florida and spend a week to get out of that junk in the cold. You know, they're miserable all the time. You get to stay down here all the time and experience nice weather if you come to one of these schools. I mean, it's just you can combat it, but what he's doing is ingenious. We've already discussed it. I hate some of the things that he's doing, some of the tactics, but he's trying to find his niche to get Michigan football back to where it once was. And you know, just like the times, this isn't the 80s anymore. People aren't going to Michigan just because it's Michigan. They're not going up there because it's the Big House. There's a lot of other stadiums that are nicer than the Big House now. Technology's better. There's a lot more programs that have passed Michigan's program. So you know what? You can stay in the Stone Age and do things the way you used to when it worked, or you can change with the times. And that's what Jim Harbaugh's trying to do. He's trying to get Michigan back into the top echelon of college football programs. But they've got a little pipeline going from Prattville High School right now, and I think we got a phone call already this morning. Let's go to the phone lines, and caller, you're on Saturday Sports Countdown.
Hey, Brett.
Hey, man.
This is Justin.
Hey, bud. What's up?
I just want to call in, you know, how many offers did Tyree have? Do we know?
I don't really know of any hard offers outside of the Murray State offer, Justin, and you know, and I know he signed with Murray State on Tuesday, and it was on Wednesday, actually. It was a great opportunity for him to go and play college football. But I think I kind of know where you're going with it, Justin.
Yeah, you see me over here beating this dead horse. But I know I'm biased, but you see these kids going to, Alabama State and Tuskegee's and these other Michigans. And I mean, I just look at that season highlight tape again today. And I mean, Luke, can you provide some insight? You're kind of non-biased. I just think Tyree could have ended up a little bit, higher school possibly.
I mean, I keep saying that if Alabama had offered Tyree Gray late, and obviously I want Alabama to go for the best players they can go for, okay? And if they had missed on, if I know they were going to miss on A.J. Brown and miss on this other guy, and then they had said, kind of one of our backup plans is Tyree Gray, and I don't mean that as an insult. I want this to be clear. But if they had said, we're offering Tyree Gray, I think a lot of people would have said, who in the world is Tyree Gray? And I would have said, I think it's a steal, okay? But I guess I am kind of biased, Justin, in the sense that I'm from Alex City. I know a little bit about Tyree Gray. I've seen him a little bit more. I've heard you and Brett and Randy and Scott talk about it more. So I would be more inclined to take a chance on him. If I were Alabama, I would take a chance because I look at it like, my roster's so loaded. Why can't I take a chance on a kid like this that could explode on the scene?
Yeah.
But I think Alabama and Auburn's and LSU's and Ohio State's loss is Murray State's gain. And the one thing that I've noticed about his signing with Murray State is there are a lot of folks that feel almost – I don't want to say saddened by it, but there's a word that is not popping into my head right now, almost displeased with it, when instead of worrying about who he didn't sign with, let's worry about who he did sign with. And I think this is a huge opportunity for him. It's a free education. He can go and kick butt for Murray State.
Yeah,
and you know what? What if he turns out to be incredible? And what if he were to be eventually a graduate transfer to Alabama or Auburn?
Well, let me just put this to you, Justin, and I found this out this week. And look, I can't really say it other than this, so if I offend somebody, I apologize. I mean, we all watched Valley's football team this year, didn't we? You remember that team, Justin? The high school team over there?
Yeah. The one Tyree just broke through.
But everybody else did too. But Opelika and Ben Russell combined for 140 points to their 0 in those two games. And I'm not knocking Valley's kids, okay? I'm trying to be as diplomatic about this as I can be. Did you realize they had a defensive lineman sign with Miami on Wednesday? I mean, could you tell me who on that defense? And I'm sorry, we could have scored 100 points. And I know that one guy can't make the difference in a defense, but if you are a talent that's going to go to a Miami or an ACC or an SEC team, you're going to stand out every once in a while. You're going to do something, even though I didn't see a single person on that defense that I would trade for Trey Edwards, for Tay Robinson, anybody. So what is going on?
Justin, I can answer a little bit more about this too, though. I think it's just like the NFL draft. Recruiting is kind of that way in the sense of you're more scared to miss out on somebody with potential. The kid that signed with Miami, Florida, you're talking about is a kid named Tyreek Martin. Okay. And I don't know anything about him. I hadn't heard of him. That's no knock on him. I'm just like you, Brett. I follow recruiting. I hadn't heard of him.
I just want to say it. I watched.
So
didn't see anything.
I'm assuming he's a pretty big kid who has the ability to fill out more.
I understand.
And maybe some of these recruiters, or maybe he has a coach that maybe he has a connection. Maybe he has a coach that has really sold him to the Miami program. And I think that, look, if there's any knock on maybe the athletic system here, maybe we don't sell our kids enough. Maybe we don't get out there and push them out there enough. Maybe that's one thing, we try to do it. But maybe as a community, we don't do that as well enough.
Well,
I don't know.
I totally get what you're saying, Luke. Intangibles are hard to come by, but Anthony Parker was 6'7", almost 300 pounds, left tackle for Ben Russell. I mean, I know what you're saying. I get it, but I watched with my own two eyes. Valley's defense, and normally Randy and I can go to a stadium and say, man, that guy, it doesn't matter what caliber team he's on, he can't help who he's playing for. Mm-hmm. But he go, man, that kid's pretty good, and man, if he gets to this level, he could be really, really good. I just didn't see it. And, look, again, I think Luke's right. It's not about who he didn't sign with. It's who he did sign with and being positive. But I will say this, and I think this has something to do with it too. And Tyree had been recruited by Travaris Robinson and Will Muschamp when they were there, and they left. And I think Tyree would have had a shot to go, but Tyree's not even ranked on any of these recruiting services.
That is bizarre to me too.
And I mean, so here's where the ball, in my opinion, is not even in the gym. It's not dropped, but it's not in the gym. Is I think Auburn and Alabama hear about Tyree Gray. I'm just using him as an example, or any kid. They hear about him, and maybe they know he's an outstanding player for a great 6A program like Benjamin Russell, but he didn't have any ratings. So, I know coaches say don't pay any attention to ratings, but look, you get your classes rated based on stars and evaluations and all that. So if Auburn and Alabama are signing all these 4- and 5-star kids, and then all of a sudden they get a kid that's NR, that's not ranked, it's not even a 3-star, but NR, and we all know Tyree Gray's a 4-star caliber kid. I don't care who you talk about or what. He's a 4-star caliber kid. But if he's not ranked by any service, then it's like Auburn, Alabama's got all these 4- and 5-stars, and then they've got a kid over here that's NR, and everybody's like, so their fan bases and their programs are like, well, who is this?
Okay, well, let me give you a good parallel, Justin, and this is a good phone call to stir up some good conversation. I had two thoughts while Brett was talking about that. First of all, I want to go back and say I wasn't trying to throw anybody under the bus necessarily that we don't sell our kids enough. I mean, it's an attitude sometimes. And Benjamin Russell is more about, I think historically Benjamin Russell has been more about the team than an individual superstar. Would you say that? I mean, overall, when I think Benjamin Russell, I don't think about necessarily Cam Newton-esque player throughout our history. I think about we had a good defense in 2000 and whatever.
But between the years of 2000 and 2007, Luke, we sent 4 guys to Auburn.
Yeah.
To major D1 pro, and we sent one to Louisville. We sent John Russell to Louisville. I mean, we've had our share of guys go to major programs.
Okay. I just wanted to get that out of the way. Secondly, what if Tyree Gray had played for Hoover? What if Tyree Gray had played for even Leeds? I mean, Leeds gets more press than we do. That would have been certainly interesting. And the other thing that I thought about, Alabama just signed a kid in this last recruiting class named Joshua Jacobs. And Joshua Jacobs, Brett kept talking about NR. He was an NR. I had never heard of him. Hadn't heard a thing about him. I follow recruiting as intently as I possibly can, especially for Alabama, and never heard of him. One day, somebody puts out a tape, and Oklahoma, the kid's in Tulsa, Oklahoma now. It's not like he's in Alexander City, Alabama. He's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They have airports and stuff. So you can get there, and you know about them. And somebody puts out a tape, the right person sees it, he explodes. Ohio State comes in, Oklahoma comes in, Missouri comes in, Alabama comes in. And it just so happens that the kid had always had a dream of, I want to go play for Alabama because I see what they do with running backs and yada, yada, yada. The rest is history. He ends up going from a relative no-name to
a 4-star.
A 4-star by most services.
Overnight.
I mean, and I
think that's what happened with Tyree. And look, Jason Caldwell wrote a story while we were at the Super 7 on Tyree. Benjamin Russell did go to the semifinals. They were in the top 5 in 6A football this year. They were a good program. I'm gonna say something about these recruiting services. How in the world do you not get somebody to rank this kid based off his tape? Okay, I understand NR through halfway through the season, but at some point in time, you go, man, that guy, look at those highlights. We need to get him rated. He's not rated in our service. We need to get him rated. I don't think that's anybody in the school's responsibility. I mean, at some point in time, the recruiting service, just one of them, needs to look and say, that guy needs to be rated in our services. Look at what he's doing. Look at his numbers. I mean, he rushed for 1,800 yards this year. And the tailback behind him rushed for 1,800 yards. Justin, if you'll hang on the line, we'll come back. We'll continue the discussion when we come back.
All right, thanks.
This segment of Sports Blitz is brought to you by Satterfield on Highway 280 in Alec City. Satterfield is the Lake Martin area's Big Green Egg and Accessories headquarters.
5 seconds. Y'all are live.
Welcome back into the Saturday Sports Countdown. Luke Robinson along with Brett Pritchard today, and we've got Justin Clayton on the phone with us. We've been talking about this Tyree Gray situation. It's funny how these things you think a show is going to go a certain way, and we
just throw that in just wad that up and throw it in the trash.
We can wad up our whole itinerary and throw it in the trash. But you know what? This is an interesting topic, and Brett, it's hard to say exactly what makes somebody
it's just
a 5-star or a 4-star or 3-star. Sometimes you can just look out there and see, but some of it is the school has to help, the community has to help, and the kid, I guess, has to help himself occasionally. I don't know. I
don't have the correct answer, and I know a lot of people look to us to provide answers and all, and Justin, I think where it comes from is, again, it's not anything of us trying to stir anything up. It's that it's us right. Being emotionally attached to kids that we followed for 3 years, and we want to see them. And look, we technically, if you want to be honest about it, we don't have a tie-in with any of these kids. I mean, it's just that you watch them and you see their athletic ability, you see what kind of person they are, and boy, Benjamin Russell really stresses that. Not only do we want you to be a great athlete, but we want you to be a good person too, and what you're going to be able to provide to society. And that whole team this year, just full of great kids from top to bottom. I don't care if they're a sophomore or senior, just great kids. And that's what Danny Horn does. Danny Horn is a tremendous coach, and he's got tremendous help over there as far as his assistants. He's got one of the best staffs in the state. He'll say that. And, I think they love those kids like their own, and nobody wants to see them succeed more than they do. But it's just a weird scenario with the type of talent we have here, and you just don't get the number of bigger offers. I mean, you want to talk about intangibles? I mean, these kids have intangibles, man. I mean, they've got, the size. A lot of them have, the speed and the ability. I mean, Tyree Gray, I watched Auburn football this year. I know what Auburn had back there. Now, Auburn's going to be better in the secondary this coming up year. I actually expect Auburn to be really good in the secondary. But, Tyree Gray is definitely a guy that could play defensive. I watch him play defensive, but I know how physical he is, Justin. And, I mean, Tyree Gray's a guy that could definitely get on that field at Auburn and be a contributor. And not only as an athlete, I know what kind of kid he is. That's the kind of person – he's never going to get in trouble. He's never going to be into things that are going to cause a problem, bad publicity for Auburn University. He's what you want. You want a team full of those guys because they're going to work their tail off. They're going to go above and beyond. They're going to be the first one to the weight room, last one to leave the film room, and you add his athletic ability in there, guys. You got something special.
All right. Who's the tight end from Dadeville that went to Mississippi State a couple years ago?
Darian Hutcherson.
Okay. I'm not – this is no shot at Darian Hutcherson. I just feel like Tyree Gray is at least on the level of Darian Hutcherson.
And look at what he's doing at Mississippi State.
Well, that's my point is if I'm Mississippi State, forget Alabama and Auburn. I get it. Alabama –
yeah, let's just remove Alabama and Auburn from the conversation. What about all these other schools out there?
Forget Ole Miss. Forget Clemson. Okay, I get it. Y'all are recruiting at another level. And you know what? If you showed me Tyree Gray against, A.J. Brown, I'm going to say, you know what? I love Tyree Gray.
How about UAB, who had the top recruiting class in Conference USA? Where were they?
Well, see, UAB to me is the prime example of somebody from here has got to get in touch with Bill Clark because maybe Bill Clark just doesn't know. I mean, again, it's BRHS.
There's no way Bill Clark doesn't know who Tyree Gray is. That he was the quarterback for a team that played on a statewide game in the semifinals. I mean, if he doesn't know, somebody on his coaching staff knows.
The thing about it, he was probably there to watch the other quarterback for Spanish Fort and Tyler Johnson.
Who they signed
and who's having Tommy John surgery.
I don't get it, man.
So if he's having Tommy John surgery and he can't play for a while, I would at least look on the other side and say,
how about the kid that put 27 on the board against Spanish Fort for the first time that they've ever had that happen in their school's history?
20-something lead, right?
27-10 at half.
Okay. I mean, if I'm Bill, and again, Bill Clark knows what he's doing. He doesn't need Luke Robinson to tell him what to do. Yeah. But I'm just saying, to me, it just seems like a no-brainer.
And I know there's holes out there, but I don't know how in 6A football, the quarterback of a team that's in the semifinals, that's not a hole. and you see stats. You see
It's not a
stats.
fluke, yeah.
You see that kind of stuff that goes up on the internet, and you see that kind of stats. I don't know. What's your take, Justin? I mean, you brought it up. I think it's a great topic, man.
Well, I'll close with this. I got all the respect to the Lord. Danny Horn, that coaching staff and administration has done so much to turn the football program around, and we're trucking along awesomely. But we've been fortunate to work with Jamie Dubose, and I asked him a couple years ago at Super 7, what do you suggest, to get these kids? And he said, you got to start when they're freshmen and sophomores, go into camp. You've got to market them. You've got to, you got to have relationships with Andrew Bone and Jason Caldwell, and make sure they're taking their ACT in their sophomore year as soon as they can. And they just had 12 kids sign scholarships off their team. So, I don't know. I look forward to hearing the rest of y'all's conversations. And I'll talk to y'all later.
Thank you, Justin. We appreciate the call, and you can be part of the program, 256-234-6221. Man, I'm going to tell you, it's a great program, and I've been calling Benjamin Russell football since 2000, Luke, and Danny Horn has rejuvenated this program. And look, I'm gonna say this: it's not you said it. It's multiple people's responsibility, and kids themselves, and being able to go things. And look, there are a lot of opportunities out there in this world to play at different places and all. And I just think that there's sometimes some of these, and I'll go back to these sites, these recruiting sites, and I know they have to have information, but I know they have information because you and I told Andrew Bone, we told Jason Caldwell, so look, it's not like they didn't know about them. They knew about these kids. We told about them. And I know Andrew Bone and Jason Caldwell don't make the decisions on that, but the word gets relayed from them to somebody. Somebody just said, look, whatever. But let's go back to the phone lines, pick up another call. Caller, go ahead.
Hey guys, yeah, this is me, Jerome. I just want to add a comment. I mean, I know we got some great guys that playing for our team, and everybody, like I said, they're respectable for around in the community and everything. But I want to ask you this: what if Benjamin Russell would have beat Spanish Forward? We would have won this thing, came back out in the second half, and maybe could have put together another good second half and beat this team. Then Tyree Gray would have got good looking at, because hey, here's a team that beat the number one team, and here who is Benjamin Russell? A lot of times, when they look at little schools like us, I mean, even though Benjamin Russell been up there in the last few years since I've been, going around here and there in the city, from where I went to school, I mean, from like a 2A school to a big 6A school like Benjamin Russell we are, if we'd have won the state championship, would they look at us then and say, hey, who is this team that just beat the number one team? But just because we let down in our guard and then let them come back and beat us, you reckon that was the reason that we wasn't? They wouldn't look at us?
Not at all.
Hang up and listen to y'all. And
can't hear me.
My prediction is Carolina will win this game. I'll say 45-35, and Cam gonna get over 200 yards, probably passing and rushing. But let's go
everything.
Carolina.
Well,
Thank you, Jerome. That's going to do it for Saturday Sports.
We're signing off. Hey, but while the music's playing, let me just say this real quickly. I don't think it had a thing to do with anything. Losing to Spanish Fort had nothing to do, because obviously if it did, Valley wouldn't have had anybody within a 200-mile radius of their school trying to recruit anybody.
We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Your love.
Welcome back to the Saturday Sports Countdown. Luke Robinson along with Brett Pritchard. And, you know, Brett, we just have a few stories out there. The Super Bowl's coming up. Johnny Manziel and his incredible fall from, I hate to say grace. Maybe it was fall from gross. I don't know.
Johnny Manziel.
Alabama and Auburn and the recruiting stuff. But, you know, this Tyree Gray thing got us off on a tangent. You've got a big college bash tournament out there. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah, the Southern Regional Bass Tournament, biggest college bass tournament ever in the history of bass fishing, right here on Lake Martin. 220 boats competing in this tournament field, and it's been a 3-day tournament. Today's the culmination. Let me first off say, locally, I was very proud of my guys. I had several sitting pretty after day one, but, you know, they learned a lot about multi-day fishing tournaments, is that you got to catch them not only day one, not only day two, but day three, or you got to finish up catching them on day two to have a shot to go fishing day three. And they fished their tail off yesterday, and they did all they could, but weren't able to make the cut. But I'm proud of all my guys. They did such a wonderful job in preparation and working hard. And look, you know, in football, basketball, and baseball, you know the dimensions of the field. You know, every time you go out on the mound to throw a pitch, it's not going to change. You know, football fields are 100 yards long, basketball courts 90 feet. You know, fishing, Luke, they're different lakes. Each lake fishes different from day to day, hour to hour. You can work your tail off and be on a pattern, and it just completely disappear like you haven't ever put any kind of work in at all. So, you know, it's not your normal sport. Even in golf, you know, you can play a golf course and you're pretty accustomed to that golf course, but the wind may change, but you can adjust. A lake and fishing,
hole won't move.
The hole's not moving. No, the hole's not moving. The fish can decide, hey, I'm ready to get the heck out of here. And so, you know, there is a lot of fortunate things that have to happen for you to be successful, especially over a 3-day period. But our guys are going to get better and better. But I want to encourage everybody to come out to Central Alabama Community College today at 3 o'clock. ESPN is here. We need a big crowd. They're going to cover this weigh-in live on the campus. If you can't miss it, right when you pass in front of the campus, you'll see the big stage. It's already set up there. They're going to start letting people up there around 2:30. Come on up there and bring your chairs and your seats and get ready. It's going to be really pretty outside today and a little chilly, so bundle up. But, Luke, to have Alabama, who's sitting in first place, Auburn's in third. You got South Alabama, or actually South Alabama in second, Auburn in third. You got teams like Mississippi State, South Carolina. All these big SEC schools are still in this thing. And now we would have loved to have had a team in it, you know, with it being our home school. But we're going to be out there to support, and we want you to come support all these guys because they worked hard too, and they've traveled, you know, miles and miles away from home. Some of these guys have driven, you know, as much as 10 hours from their home school, Luke. So we want to show everybody out there now in Inner City, around the country, that we support this program and we support more tournaments coming here. We want more college tournaments. We want more people in town. So if you got, you know, you need to open up your plans. I was going to say, if you don't have any plans, come out, open up your plans and make for this hour and a half weigh-in. Trust me, they do it unbelievable. It's a great show. It's a fun event. You need to bring your family out. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it could be a great day for it. I mean, you couldn't ask for any better weather. Beautiful. I mean, when I was growing up, and I don't know anything about fishing, but they always said that you kind of want it to be a little dreary to fish. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean,
is it better to be?
Sometimes.
I don't know.
Just depends.
Whatever.
Like I said, it changes.
You need to check with the fish?
Yeah, you need to ask them first. It depends on, you know, somebody said, I don't understand why that fish doesn't bite. You know, you can actually do a test, and bass guys do a test. They take these huge tanks, they'll drop a lure down in front of a fish, and the fish will just look at it and he'll swim away. And then sometimes they'll come up and they'll bite it, Luke. Well, look, every time you walk through the kitchen of your house, do you grab something to eat? Now, I mean, I think you might do, but I mean,
yeah, I do.
But seriously, humans aren't hungry 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know there's food in the pantry, but just because you pass by the pantry doesn't mean you go walk in there and get you a snack every time. Well, just because you flip a lure down there in front of a bass's face doesn't mean he's going to bite it every time.
That's
right. They go through hunger patterns just like we do. So that's part of it, and that's part of the game. But looking forward to a big turnout today. ESPN will be there covering this weigh-in.
Okay, Brett, look, Super Bowl can be our fallback topic today, I think, because I know Super Bowl is, first of all, you're going to have 5 hours of pregame tomorrow. Everybody
turn it on at midnight and then
it'll be starting. I mean, it's like the Jerry Lewis telethon. But I do want to talk about this Johnny Manziel thing for a second. It's come out.
I think we need to talk about it longer than that. Yeah. I mean, it's a joke.
All right, so it's come out that he apparently assaulted a former girlfriend. She was scared for her life. He was pushing her into a car. She was begging the valet for help, and the valet was like, "Look, what do you want me to do?" He probably should have intervened, but I mean, you can't expect somebody like that to just take care of you. And so he was talking about killing himself, killing both of them. She had to threaten him with a knife when they finally got back to an apartment, and he ran out the door. And then his father has gone on radio and basically said, "Look, if somebody doesn't get him help," I think it was what was weird to me.
Cry for help. Cry for help.
What was weird to me was the father used the pronoun, "They've got to get him help," and I was thinking, who's the they in that sentence? Is it the Browns? Is it his agent who dropped him? By the way, the agent said, "I've done all I can do for him, and I'm dropping him."
People are trying to get away from him as fast as they can, and that just shows you, an agent's probably going to be the last guy to stick beside you because they're going to want that money. They want to see you succeed. That agent wanted nothing more than Johnny Manziel to go out there and light it up, sign big contracts, and he get paid. When the agent says I'm gone, I mean, that tells you all you need to know. The Browns have had enough. I don't know what other NFL franchise would want him, even though Jerry Jones is crazy as a loon. I don't even think he takes a chance on him now in Dallas. And I know this is going to sound pro Auburn, pro Cam Newton, and I know Cam Newton made a mistake when he was younger. And I mean, yeah, he had a deal with a laptop. Okay, let's quit beating that dead horse in the ground. I think we've all done things in the past that we're not very proud of, but he ain't killing anybody, he ain't threatening anybody. Cam Newton's a good person. He loves to play the game of football. He has fun doing it. Some people just don't like to see people having fun, all right? And that's just the way it is. Don't compare or put Johnny Manziel's name in the same sentence with Cam Newton anymore, with anybody. I don't care what he did at Texas A&M. I don't care what he's doing now. Look at what Cam Newton has had to work with in the NFL. Look at all the naysayers. He's battled through it. And he's going to be on the cusp of doing something no other NFL player's ever done if he's able to win this Super Bowl outside of Marcus Allen. Where's Johnny Manziel in all this? Even the people that are critical of Jameis Winston, Luke, which I have been, he's going to get Rookie of the Year, and he's going to be a phenomenal player if he can get his life turned around. Johnny Manziel is just a playboy running around throwing money up in the air, and his party's about to be over.
Well, we're going to talk about it some more because there's a lot to talk about. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Y'all are clear.
In the dark, call Dark Insurance at 256-234-5026.
5 seconds, y'all are live.
Welcome back into the Saturday Sports Countdown. Luke Robinson along with Brett Pritchard again here at JR Sports Bar and Grill. I hadn't said enough about JR's Sports Bar and Grill already today. Come out here, get you some chicken fingers, head down to Lake Martin. You can catch some of the bass fishing that's going on for the big college tournament. And Alabama's involved, Auburn's involved, a lot of big-name teams out there. This is a huge deal. So get down to Lake Martin and try and check that out. We're talking about Johnny Manziel right now and his fall, which has been incredible and precipitous and quick and unbelievable to me to watch somebody. Because I'll tell you, Brett, we were talking off air about a lot of people compared the two, and I think the comparisons were inevitable simply because those two guys came so close to one another.
Sure.
And in a sense, on the field, they were both incredible and dynamic and unbelievable to watch. Cam Newton was a more dominating force
physically.
But I thought Johnny Manziel was the most dynamic player I've ever seen in SEC history.
Because he was small and
he was small, he was quick, but he was elusive. He could throw it. He could throw it a mile. He could throw it quickly. He could throw a bullet across the field, across his body. He did things against Alabama defenses, some of the best Alabama defenses I've ever seen that nobody else can do. And it blew my mind. Now, obviously, he didn't win like Cam Newton either, but they both had, Cam Newton had his Superman thing. Johnny Manziel had his little money thing. So there were some definite comparisons there. And they both set records. I mean, Johnny Manziel holds the top 2 season records for most yardage in SEC history. That's unbelievable. People don't talk about that enough. That's an incredible feat when you have a conference that's had Cam Newton, and it's had Derrick Henry, and it's had Herschel Walker, and it's had Bo Jackson. I mean, it's had the kid from McFadden, Darren McFadden. It's had unbelievable names littered throughout this conference. Johnny Manziel holds the record, and he holds the second-place record as well. That's unbelievable. But, okay, the thing that we talked about off air was I think Texas A&M didn't do this kid any favors. And I don't think people are talking about that enough because I'm going to tell you, when he got in trouble in Texas A&M, and he got in trouble a few times, if Texas A&M had said to him, we're going to suspend you, I don't know. I mean, I'm picking numbers out of the air here, but 4 games.
Yeah.
Okay? Or you can't play for us. And you have to go to Blinn Junior College, a la Cam Newton. Florida said, look, you got to go, and it's better that we part ways. So Cam is humbled. He has to go to Blinn Junior College. He does good things there.
Yeah.
But because he was taken away, the privilege was taken away from it. It may have made him work harder to do more.
And you hit the nail on the head, Luke, because if you watch this last 30 for 30 about Cam Newton and his rise to where he is in the NFL, that was the low point of his, he was voted most likely to succeed in his class in high school and best personality and all this. He leaves and goes to Florida. He's going to be the guy that takes over for Tim Tebow when he leaves. He gets the incident with the computer. He doesn't even make the trip to the national championship game. He leaves the team the week before the national championship game, goes back home. People are making laptop jokes about him. They're doing all this stuff. He ends up at Blinn College, Blinn Junior College. He said he walks in the locker room, and after practice, they said, well, here, you need to put this in the laundry. And he said, we don't have anybody to wash our uniforms. And they said no. And then game day came, and he got no armband. He said, you mean we don't even get armbands? We get that? He said he was at the lowest of the low points, and he said you can choose to go in one of 2 directions there. You can throw it all up in the air and say, look, I'm not going to do this, and I'm going to rebel. Or you can do what Cam Newton did, is go to a college that had never won at Blinn College, and you take them to a national championship, and you win, and the rest is history to this point and what he's been able to do. I think you're right. He had that humbling experience. And Texas A&M never made Johnny Manziel responsible or accountable for any of his actions. You suspend him for a half, and then you bring him back in, and he's still out there throwing up money signs in the second. He didn't learn any lessons from anything, and that's what happens when you get teams that have a good player like that have a set of rules that's different from them than the rest of the team. And when they know that they're the best player and you got to have them more than you need them, then they get away with stuff. And I think that's maybe, you're right, the diagnosis. And what Johnny Manziel's finding out, Luke, is when you get to the NFL, Hell, nobody needs you. Nobody needs you. I don't care how good you are.
Well, and here's the other thing that I think that it also Texas A&M did a disservice to themselves, because you look at that program since then. They've been kind of a train wreck, disorganized.
Definitely on the way down.
Nobody really feels like there's a leader there, or if you do something wrong, there are going to be any repercussions. I feel like if you don't set these precedents, then what will happen is it'll spread throughout, and it takes a while to undo that. Alabama went through it with the Mike Shula regime, which seemed to be rather lax, and then Nick Saban himself. DJ Hall gets in some trouble, and Alabama suspends him for the game. And then there's kind of, well, not for the game. We're going to bring you back in second half for Louisiana Monroe. Alabama loses. And I think that turned Nick Saban's whole attitude around about some of this. I think he learned a lesson himself and said, I'm not going to do that anymore. If somebody's suspended, they're suspended. Or if somebody's in trouble, they're in trouble. That's just the end of it.
Be hard about what you're doing.
You can kick people off. I mean, Alabama's had to kick some people off. I mean, look, DJ Petway was kicked off, and he had to earn his way back onto the Alabama sidelines, and he did, and it ended up being great for him. I mean, he may end up being drafted this year, so that could be a positive. But you look at the path Cam took from obviously Florida, gets in trouble, maybe a bit of a prima donna there, goes to Blinn, has to humble himself, goes to Auburn, and luckily, I think you could make the same argument. It may be a good thing that he left Auburn after 1 year, Brett. What if he had come back and then he would have all the things doted upon him? Who knows what would happen? Then he goes to Carolina, an NFL program that has nothing, so he has to start at nothing. What if he had gone to, I don't know, Denver or the Cowboys? In a sort of a dysfunctional organization. Instead, he goes to Carolina and has to earn his way through there. So
things have just worked out for him. They really have.
But at first, it seems like they're not working out. But it's funny, and if you're a really religious person, you can say God has a plan for you here. That's where I would insert that if you're a really religious person. But I'm just saying it's funny how his path went that way if he had had the same path as Manziel, if Florida had said, okay, Cam, don't do that with computers anymore, but you just stay right here and just do your thing. What if he would have done something worse next year?
Look, I definitely think I definitely think at any level, none of us are beyond learning lessons and being disciplined and learning from our mistakes. And there's got to be a higher power involved at some point in time, especially when you're dealing with kids, and those college football players are kids, that somebody has to be the disciplinarian in there and has to make a statement and say, we're not going to tolerate this. We're not going to accept that. We don't do it this way. I don't care how talented you are. And, I know it was Florida's loss because Cam Newton probably would have been outstanding at Florida too and probably would have played for 2 years down there and would have been a tremendous quarterback for them. But, their loss was somebody else's gain, but it was probably Cam Newton's gain. It was probably his gain in the end. And you're right, Luke. He's been everywhere he's been. He's had to come up. And what I just said to you off the air was, I think, probably proven in that statement. Johnny Manziel doesn't respect – he loves the game of football. I think Cam Newton would play for free. I really do if he could, because he loves playing, and Johnny Manziel may too. But the problem is Johnny Manziel doesn't put the work in. He doesn't put the time in. He doesn't respect the game or his teammates. He's selfish. He's out in Las Vegas partying it up the night before a football game, and he just doesn't – he's not mature, Luke. For whatever reason, he doesn't know how to handle it.
Well, we're going to talk about this some more. We'll talk about the Super Bowl. We want to get into recruiting probably next. We'll be back in just a minute with more of the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Clear.
We're sending you back to the future.
Big V Barbecue in Alex City is hopping in the DeLorean and going all the way back to 1996 for the month of February. Cool deals at the Marine the locals know. Alex City Marine.
Hello, I'm State Farm Agent Karen Chanel. I specialize in helping families and individuals like yourself in the Alexander City and Lake Martin communities. With over 20 years experience with State Farm and a dynamic team of licensed professionals, I am committed to helping you manage the risks of everyday life. So we not only consider it an honor, but a privilege to assist you in meeting your insurance and financial services needs. Whether you call in, click in, or walk in, I sincerely look forward to hearing from you.
This segment of Sports Blitz is brought to you by Russell Do-It Center, offering a complete assortment of lumber, building materials, electrical, and plumbing supplies. Russell Do-It Center stores deliver first-class service, top-rate products, and competitive do-it-best prices.
Y'all are live.
Welcome back to the Saturday Sports Countdown. Brett, there's sometimes we're up here at JR Sports Bar and Grill and we're doing the Saturday Sports Countdown or the Lake Martin Sports Roundup or any of our programming. And it can be, I don't know, mid-June, not a lot going on. It can be right around SB time where there's not any real sports and you can be struggling through something and can feel like some of the minutes take like hours.
Oh, sure.
Today, it has felt like minutes or seconds.
I looked down and it's already after 11 o'clock, man. It may be the fastest hour that I can remember us doing. But, you know, that's what this show's designed to do is – and then there's a lot going on, too. I mean, we've had recruiting this week. We got the Super Bowl coming up. This is Super Bowl 50, by the way. It's a big deal, regardless of who the teams are involved. And, of course, the things that always go on and off the field and court and whatever it is, you know, with drama in professional athletes. And we've been talking about Johnny Manziel this morning. What about Louisville over on the college basketball side? And, look, you know, there are just some things you do in life. And you kind of shape your aura and what people feel about you. And to me, Rick Pitino, he's ruined his demeanor and his legacy and his reputation, and it's tainted. He did things the wrong way. He's maybe there's karma in that as well because he cannot beat Kentucky. It doesn't matter how good a team he has. Where he plays them, the Moon, in Louisville, in Lexington, wherever, he just can't do it. And I'm a firm believer in, you know, you reap what you sow, and he sowed a bunch of rotten crops, and it's starting to catch up with him now, and Louisville's going to be penalized. And, you know, there's just guys that wherever they go, there's a trail of slime. And Rick Pitino is one of those guys to me. And I know John Calipari gets labeled with that labeled that same way a lot of times. And he's caught a lot of flack about the way he does things. And, you know, the wake he left at UMass and the wake he left at Memphis, and everywhere he goes, they said, just wait, Kentucky, you're next. Sell yourself out to this guy and he'll do you in. And he may or may not, but Rick Pitino is, to me, a slime ball. And in the stuff that's come out, this is, you know, we're not naive up here to think stuff doesn't go on all these programs. We're not naive to think people don't get paid and special privilege and all that. But stuff's coming out in Louisville. I mean, it just brings to light that nasty side of things in college athletics.
Depravity, really, more than anything. But I feel like you're right. John Calipari, yes, I can see where people would make inferences that he dabbles in some illegalities when it comes to recruiting. I get that. But I feel it feels worse with Pitino. And I don't even know what worse is. It's hard to say because in NCAA's eyes, I think if you give somebody a hamburger who's starving in a recruit, or if you give them $100,000, it's the same thing.
Same thing. I know.
And we know that's screwed up. Okay. But it feels like what Pitino's been doing just it makes me feel icky. I mean, I can't.
That's what I'm saying. You don't get any kind of good feeling about anything, you know, that he has anything to do with.
Right. And I mean, I don't know. And the other thing is Louisville has said, okay, we're just not going to participate in the postseason tournament this year. And they do have a team good enough to obviously play in the NCAA tournament.
That's what Bruce Pearl said about Auburn this year. He said, I tell you what, we'll go ahead and impose some sanctions on ourselves this year, and we'll not go to the
But here's my thing about that. Here's what I don't like about that. Then why are they even I mean, maybe they just shouldn't be playing, or maybe the games they play shouldn't count. It's not fair for a team to play Louisville either way, to play them and get beaten
you get
by,
nothing,
or if
nothing.
you play them and they're not even really trying because they know they can't win anything. It's not fair for that either. Their games just frankly shouldn't count, period, for, against, anything. I mean, that's the way I look at that. If you're bowl ineligible, if you're postseason ineligible, I've always believed that your games just frankly shouldn't count because they can't count. They, by nature, they don't have the same meaning. They just don't. I mean, I find that to be a problem, and I don't know what the NCAA will do about it or won't do about it. But okay, let's get into something that I know a little bit more about, Brett, and that's recruiting this past week. We've talked about it a lot. We had a recruiting show up here. I know you were doing the fishing thing, couldn't be here, but also heard you guys on Sportz Call do a recap of Auburn's class a lot. Obviously, if anybody wanted to call in and talk about Auburn's or Alabama's class, I'd be happy to. One thing that I listen to Sportz Call as often as I can because I'm usually driving back and forth to Birmingham a lot while you guys are on. And one thing, a caller called in and said, look, I just don't get it about guys like they bring up Tanae Patrick a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, Tanae Patrick, why he would go to Alabama and obviously didn't work out, whatever. But or why anybody who's a 5-star would go to Alabama right now, depth chart, et cetera, et cetera. And my thought on that has always been, number one, Alabama played more true freshmen last year than Auburn did. Okay, so let's get that out of the way. It's not like if you're not good enough, you won't get on the field. Number two, if you're scared of competition, if a guy's scared of competition, why would you want him on your team? Let me say this. If Tanae Patrick couldn't get on the field much at Alabama, why would an Auburn fan say you should have come to Auburn? Because obviously he wasn't good enough to play there. Why would he? And I don't mean
I think you're right, Luke. I mean, I've been one in the past to say, only so many players can play this position and all this kind of stuff. But I think you're right. I think everybody yearns for, and just because he didn't get on the field at Alabama because they were deep doesn't mean he would have been a great player at Auburn. And the same thing, I know it could be reversed. And well, maybe if he'd have come to Alabama, he would have developed into something more than if he'd have gone to Auburn. Well, that's maybe not the case either. I mean, just because he didn't go to Alabama doesn't mean that he was going to be the next pro prospect. And, that Auburn's program, they don't quite develop things the right way. I know that's what it looks like right now in this moment, but, I mean, Auburn's got some good players, and there's some guys out there working their tail off that are going to be just fine, and Auburn's put their fair share of guys in the NFL draft as well. So, you can look at it both ways, but I think you're right. I think you got to look at it from a standpoint of maybe he just wasn't as good as any of us thought he was to begin with.
Well, and I go back to recruiting rankings. I have people talk to me all the time. The stars don't matter, and this, that, and look, we've gone on the Tyree Gray thing, and his
stars obviously do matter in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that it's, again, on an individual basis, you can make your argument fit, but as a whole, from the broad spectrum, stars do matter. You go back and look at, I pulled up the recruiting classes from 2012, for instance, and I want to read off some of these. Now, some of these are going to have reasons why they didn't work out, and I'll tell you why. Number one in 2012 was Alabama. Number two was Texas. And you can say, oh, well, there it blows your theory. No, it doesn't, because you also have to have some kind of consistency in your athletic program. If you have an athletic program that's being run by a bunch of Nimrods,
that's exactly right.
I mean, you can have all the recruits you want, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. Okay? So, and Texas has had a lot of problems, a lot of internal
It goes back to the ingredients for the cake situation.
Number three was Florida. And you can say, well, that blows your theory. I don't know. Florida went to the SEC championship game this year. I mean, they weren't the best team you ever saw, but they won the SEC East. Ohio State's number 4. They were right there.
They won a national championship last year.
Stanford was number 5. They had one of the best seasons they've ever had. Florida State was number 6. They lost one game to Georgia Tech, and that sort of blew their season. Michigan was number 7, and again, the internal strife thing. I mean, you just
it kind of more proves the point that it does matter.
It does matter. I mean, I really believe that. So we can talk recruiting. Get your phone calls.
We'll run down the SEC recruiting classes, how they finished this year.
We'll do it next.
Clear.
The Marketing Group, your comprehensive marketing solution.
30 seconds to intro.
Your comfort is our number one concern. Advanced heat and air. Residential, commercial work. Any reason, call us first. Installation or emergencies. Trust our technicians and reliability. Your comfort is our number one concern. Advanced heat and air.
This segment of Sports Blitz is brought to you by Bice Motors in Alexander City. Brian and his crew offer the latest lines of Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, and Ram vehicles, as well as the best used inventory around. Guaranteed lowest price.
5 seconds, y'all live.
Welcome back into the Saturday Sports Countdown. Luke Robinson along with Brett Pritchard today. We're talking recruiting right now, and obviously by now a lot of folks out there are probably tired of recruiting. Brett, I actually had to take a day off myself. I followed it so intently on Wednesday, and then Thursday I just I didn't check anything. I just said I'm spent. I'm done, man.
Yeah.
It's tough to follow this. I can only imagine like coaches that have to deal with it. But I'll tell you something. I thought Nick Saban had a great story in his post-signing day press conference. He talked about how after the national championship game, after everybody had left the locker room, he was kind of in there by himself, and about 6 or 7, maybe 8 or 9 of the guys from previous classes that are already in the pros, Julio Jones, Marcel Darius, DJ Fluker, guys like that, they came in the locker room and they said to him, Coach, we just want to tell you we appreciate you for what you helped us do. I mean, without you, we wouldn't be here. And he said that made it all worth it. And So I think even Nick Saban needs a recharge, a cyborg like Nick Saban needs to hear every now and again, we appreciate you. It's not just all robotic for him. I just thought that was a pretty cool story. We got a phone call. We'll go to that. Phone call. You're on the air.
Yeah, enjoying your show
Thank you.
this morning. Just wanted to ask about there was a wide receiver that didn't sign with anybody on Wednesday. I can't recall his name. You know who I'm talking about?
I do. It's Demetrius Robertson out of Savannah, Georgia. And he's a 5-star. He's a very good player. He was committed to Alabama, I don't know, a year ago. And then he decommits from Alabama about 7, 8 months ago. And he opens up his recruitment. People think he wants to go to Stanford if he can get in. That's the whole thing. I got to give Stanford a lot of credit. They have a very rigorous admissions program. And if you don't fit that mold, you ain't getting in. I mean, in the SEC, if you're pretty close, I mean, the Alabamas and Auburns and LSUs are going to let you in if you're a good enough football player. Stanford isn't that way. So if he can't get into Stanford, it's probably going to come down to Alabama, Notre Dame, and Georgia. I think he's really torn apart about where he really wants to go because in the end, Stanford's also a long way away. But I think he would like to know about the Stanford information first and then go from there.
All right, thank you. I hadn't heard from him, but anyway, enjoying your show.
All right, thank you, buddy. Going back to recruiting for a second, Brett, I'm looking at the top 10 on 24/7 Sports. Okay, you think about how weird this is for Alabama and Auburn. Okay, Alabama finishes 1, Florida State 2. Alabama and Florida State play to open the 2017 season. LSU 3, Alabama and Auburn play them both. Ohio State 4, Michigan 5, no real connection there. Ole Miss 6, Alabama and Auburn play them both. Georgia 7, Auburn plays Georgia every single year. Southern Cal is 8, Alabama and Southern Cal open this year. Auburn is 9, obviously Alabama and Auburn play each other. And Clemson is 10, Alabama just played them and Auburn plays them to open the season next year. So if the SEC wasn't hard enough for Alabama and Auburn, they play teams that finish in the top 10 in recruiting every year too.
Well, where do you start? I mean, the grind is real. If you play in the, you're right. If you play in the SEC West, and Alabama's obviously been able to handle it and get it done, and Auburn's had their spurts where they've been able to get it done, but not on a consistent basis. So hopefully that'll change for Auburn and the Auburn fans' sake, and get that thing more on a consistent level. But that makes it even more astounding what Nick Saban's been able to do recruiting and what he's been able to do on the field, playing the competition that he plays year in and year out. And just whether you're a fan or not, you have to tip your hat to people that are successful. And, I know people go, well, this, that, and the other, but, just getting it done on the field, and that's all that matters. And, you got to have things go your way sometimes. Some years they don't go your way. Some years they do. And when they do go his way, they close the deal. So that's the good thing about it. But, Auburn on their side, and I know we're about to dive into these numbers, Luke, as far as SEC teams, Auburn has done all they can do from a recruiting standpoint. It's not like Auburn's dropped down to 40th one year and then they hop back up to 15 and then they get into the top 5 occasionally. Auburn's been predominantly a top 3 to top 9 recruiting class the last 7 years. And, it's what they do with those players. It's what happens to those players. They get in trouble. Do they leave school? Whatever. I think Auburn's had its share of unfortunate things happen to them over the last few years that have contributed to a lot of these guys not sticking around.
And how about this? The SEC West, again, if it weren't hard enough for Alabama and Auburn, just in the SEC in general, and if it weren't hard enough that they schedule your Clemsons and your Florida States and your Oregons and your USCs coming up on the schedules to be, and Alabama's got Louisville coming up, I know, in a few years, 2018. Okay, so the SEC West, Alabama's 1 in the country, or in the SEC. Let's just go with the SEC. Alabama's 1 in the SEC, LSU's 2, Ole Miss is 3. Okay, then for Auburn's sake, Georgia's 4. So you've got to play them every year too. And then Auburn's 5. Okay, so and then you go to the SEC West. Texas A&M is 8. Arkansas is 9, and Mississippi State is 11. Mississippi State at 11 is the lowest ranked SEC West team in the conference. And they got a class that is not embarrassing. They ended up having a decent class specifically because they got a kid named Jeffrey Simmons, who we saw in the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game, a 5-star that is incredible. And he surprised everybody. Everybody assumed it was Alabama or Mississippi State for him. And without him, they might have finished a little bit lower than that. But, the SEC East has 3 teams. The 3 teams that finished at the bottom, Kentucky, Missouri, and Vandy, are all in the SEC East. And so that makes it even tougher for Alabama and Auburn because you go through this meat grinder that is the SEC West. You play USC or you play Clemson, and then you get to an SEC title game against an SEC East team that has not had as tough a schedule as you.
There's no doubt. I mean, the bumps and the bruises are a lot greater on teams out of the West side than they are on the East. But I think that's why you've seen such a dominance of the Western Division here in the SEC championship game. When was the last time an SEC East team won the SEC championship game? Has it been?
It's got to be Florida in 08, right?
It's got to be them. That's the last time that they've won.
And I just had an epiphany here, Brett. What if this is kind of like with the thing we were talking about, Cam Newton and Johnny Manziel? The SEC East is Johnny Manziel. SEC West is Cam Newton, where we have to go through this, go through more struggles. We're all really good, but we got to go through more struggles. Yeah. And then by the time we get to play for a title, we're really good and we're seasoned. And the SEC East, they've got some good teams too, but they kind of flutter along.
But you see exactly what happens when they get in there and play a Western team outside of the Georgia game with Alabama and being close. They really hadn't been any close ones. I mean, Florida this year, they could have lost to Vanderbilt easily. Some other teams
could have lost to Florida, Atlanta.
Yeah, they snuck in, and you saw what happened to them. I mean, Auburn, South Carolina in 2010, Auburn, Missouri. I mean, Missouri scored a lot of points, but the game really wasn't that close. You never felt like Missouri had a chance. The East is just way below where the West is right now.
Totally agree. We'll be back in just a minute with more Sports Blitz Live.
Y'all are clear.
Payments for 90 days. HyundaiofAuburn.com. You owe it to yourself. And worry-free driving, it's a relaxathon at Hyundai of Auburn.
How much time?
Hyundai Assurance and America's Best Warranty. 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain. Instant savings. Record low rates. Locally built cars with no payments for 90 days. Stop. Compare Hyundai of Auburn's Extraordinary-a-thon. Save-a-thon. HyundaiofAuburn.com.
America's Home Place, Central East Alabama's custom home builder with top-notch construction standards and full site prep. Looking to build on the lake? Options for land you own? Or are you ready for the best up or downsize on your home? America's Home Place is the answer, without the surprises or outrageous price per square foot. With over 124 plans for any size home, you can customize to your taste and control the options with a price tailored to fit anyone's budget. Visit us online or stop by our building showroom in front of USA Factory Stores in Opelika. Call 334-364-0058.
Y'all are live.
Welcome back to the Saturday Sports Countdown. Luke Robinson along with Brett Pritchard at JR Sports Bar and Grill.
See, either one of us could have been in the band, Kiss.
Oh, yeah.
I had that part down.
Cowbell.
So I had it right on time.
Got to have more cowbell. Okay, Brett, let's get into the Super Bowl talk. We've waited long enough. One thing, again, you're going to have 6 hours of pregame talk tomorrow. So if you want to hear any strategy, any scheme, that's probably where you need to go. I want to talk some of these cool prop bets for the Super Bowl tomorrow.
Let's do it. I mean, these are always pretty fun.
Okay. This one really struck me. Cam Newton to win the MVP is minus 140. Cam Newton won't win is plus 110. Usually that's way off. So they really believe Cam Newton is going to win the MVP of this thing, and it's almost a lock.
Yep.
Cam Newton TD passes over under 1.5. I think that's going to be over, don't you?
Oh, I do. I definitely think that's over.
Cam Newton throws a pick or Cam Newton doesn't throw a pick. If throws a pick is minus 145, doesn't throw a pick is 115. I think he'll probably have an interception too. Denver's defense is good.
Yeah, I think and their pass defense is what's really good. They're really good against the passing game, and so yeah, I don't think that's a stretch at all to see Cam throw one pick.
I thought this one was a little low too. Cam Newton scores a rushing TD is plus 100. Doesn't score a rushing TD is minus 130. I feel like he's going to get a rushing TD.
I think
all of a sudden I've got Cam Newton and Carolina scoring 40 points against a really good defense
in the first half.
But you know, some of these things are great. You can bet on Jonathan Stewart yards on the first rush. The first time he rushes the ball, over under is 3.5.
Over under is 3.5. You know, can Jonathan? I mean, I know the players can. They can't bet on that, but you know, he could actually go in there and fall down.
Yeah.
I mean, he knows that bet's on the table. Hey, look, I promise I'm going to fall down on the first rush. I'm going to make you $1 million.
Right.
Well, I mean, how does that just not happen?
I don't know how you police it, but they know. I mean, because if somebody calls in and their name is Blonathan Blewart, and they say we got $1 million on the under of the rush of 3.5,
and he falls down.
Yeah.
Okay. Total good point.
How about this one?
What's the color of the Gatorade? Is that on there?
I hadn't gotten that far down.
You know what's on there.
It's amazing.
Can you not stage that one too?
You would think so.
I mean,
if I were in charge of the Gatorade,
I don't care. The equipment manager's like, I don't care who wins this game, but I win because I know what color.
Okay, Ted Ginn receiving yardage. Give me what you think the over/under should be.
The over/under for Ted Ginn receiving yards.
And it's so tricky because he's so.
I know. I'm going to say 75.
No, 49.
Ooh,
49 and a half.
About 25 or so.
I mean, I hadn't even gotten to any of the Denver people yet. It's unbelievable how many bets they have on this thing. Peyton Manning, longest pass reception, over under 34.5. Can he throw it 34 yards anymore? I mean,
I think he can.
It would count if he threw a screen pass and the guy got 35 yards.
I think he can. Yeah.
Peyton Manning.
Well, how long was that pass to Owen Daniels for a touchdown in the AFC Championship game? That was a pretty good throw now.
Yeah, that was a good throw.
It was a 25-yard throw, I think.
You know, I think he's going to have to pull one of those Toby Keiths, one of those, I might not be as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was.
That's exactly right.
That's what he's going to have to do.
And he can be. That's the scary thing about Peyton Manning. He can dig deep enough, prepare enough, and say, look, this might be my last hoorah. He could come out and look like old Peyton Manning on Sunday.
it's then you get into the team bets. These are a little better, the team prop bets. The Panthers score first or the Broncos score first. There's a score in the first 7 minutes and 30 seconds, or there's a score in the first 7 minutes, or there's a score in the first 6:30. Because I've been at some of these Super Bowl parties where people who will remain nameless, namely me, have had bets on if you will score in the first 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And so you're sitting there watching it, and they might score, after 7:01's gone again, you lose. I mean, it's done. You're hoping that they kick a field goal right at the right time.
That's right.
And they got to put the score up there right at that moment.
Or somebody can run the opening kickoff back, and you can sit back and count your dollars.
Those are the ones that are really good. The safety. Okay, is there a 2-point conversion made? That's plus 310, or no 2-point conversion made? That's minus 470. So it's not just that they have to go for the 2-point conversion.
They have to get
it. They have to get it too.
Yeah.
But I think in today's NFL, that's a little bit easier. You see more and more teams going for 2 these days.
Well, yeah, because they backed up the extra point, and then sometimes that extra point, if you miss one, it may force you to go for 2 down the line.
Is the largest lead ever more than 13.5? I'm going to say yes.
You do think it's going to be more than that? Well, Seattle, if you look back at what Seattle did to Denver a few years ago, you could easily say yes there. But, there's times that Carolina this year, even though they've been dominant, they've struggled offensively they get out of rhythm sometimes, and they'll go several drives and not score and have to punt. So, I don't know, man. I think it could, but I'm a little hesitant.
How about this one? The result of the first coach's challenge is either overturned or stands. So a coach has to challenge, and then it has to be overturned or stands.
That's crazy.
Let's see. First offensive play of the game is a rush or a pass or something different. I guess those are all you got. I guess it could be a sack because in the NFL, I heard somebody yesterday on Sports Call, by the way, and I wanted to call in and say something to him. The tiebreaker for Cam Newton was Cam Newton rushing yards. On the Super Bowl prediction.
That's right.
And in the NFL, they don't count sack yardage as negative rushing yardage.
I was going to say something about that, and they were talking about counting the sack yards, but it does not go against the quarterback when they get sacked. And I think that's right. I think that's yeah.
I think that's probably the best way to do it.
Definitely the best way to do it.
Because it's not
running.
An attempt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to get to some more of these. Broncos total third down conversions. How would you even know if you're watching this Super Bowl, you're probably having an adult beverage. There is no chance you're really going to be keeping up with it. You got to hope CBS puts up a graphic like they've converted this many third downs.
Oh, they will.
Or you'll just have to call your bookie later and say, did I win that one? That's all you can do. Let's see. Denver score a TD in the third quarter.
A lot of bets.
Odds to win MVP. Cam Newton is minus 190. I guess it's gone up. Luke Kuechly is plus 1,200. Cam Newton is minus 190. Peyton Manning is plus 250. Everybody else is in the thousands. Derek Wolfe, plus 10,000 to win the MVP.
Look, there's no chance. There's no chance a defensive player. If Justin Tuck doesn't win it, the year they beat New England, it was the game that he had against Tom Brady. They're never going.
Well, Larry Brown for the Cowboys, didn't he win it? The defensive back.
Oh my God, when was that?
I think that was before the Ice Bowl.
Exactly. Yeah. That spearheaded Larry Brown into not a very good career. Everybody thought Larry Brown was going to be, man, this guy's going to be.
That was New Hampshire against Albany, I think. But man, we could keep going.
You went back and said, well, one guy back when.
We're going to go ahead and take another break. We'll be back in just a minute more. Saturday Sports Countdown.
Full site prep. Looking to build on the lake? Options for land you own? Or are you ready for the best up or downsize on your home? America's Home Place is the answer. Without the surprises or outrageous price per square foot. With over 124 plans for any size home, you can customize to your taste and control the options with a price tailored to fit anyone's budget. Visit us online or stop by a building showroom in front of USA Factory Stores in Opelika. Call 334-364-0058. Now here's the latest smash hit from Wall
30 seconds to bumper.
Alignment, a great job. Ooh, I need an oil change. Some new tires at a great price from people highly trained. Just a mile past the bridge. There's a place called Wall Tire. That's where you wanna go. Just save some cash on your car. Down at Wall's Tire.
Wall's Tire, Highway 280.
Y'all are live.
Welcome back to the Saturday Sports Countdown. Luke Robinson and Brett Pritchard here. Oh, getting ready.
I have been up at 3:30 the last 3 mornings, so sometimes my ears play tricks on me. So
wow. Want to thank everybody who's called in this morning. Want to thank everybody who's listening. Want to thank everybody for coming over to JR Sports Bar and Grill, checking out some of their delicious food, and really do appreciate all the support.
Boy, the show's gone by fast.
It has gone by fast, but there's a lot to talk about. Like I said, there's we hadn't even gotten into SEC basketball.
No, well, look. There's only 20 minutes left. Let's spare everybody the misery, the torture. But let me go back real quick. Go back to the SEC, but on the football side, let's run down these rankings. Okay. We never did go because I want to see where, and I know you ran down some of them, in our conversation about the West and the East, but where these programs are going to be going and where they finished all the way from top to bottom. And I know you said Kentucky, Missouri, and Vanderbilt down there toward the bottom, but and then they still have respectable classes. And you and I were really concerned for Mississippi State because of the meat grinder that the SEC West is, but they ended up closing a little bit better. But they still, you can't be in their area code very long and expect to stay good in the SEC West. But before we go to that list, let's go back to the phone lines. Caller, go ahead. You're on the Saturday Sports Countdown.
This is Brian.
Hey, Brian. How you doing, buddy?
I'm predicting Carolina 34, Denver 26.
34-26. How many rushing yards for Cam Newton?
208.
208 yards for Cam Newton?
Rushing yards?
Yeah.
Okay. He said, look, do not question.
Don't doubt Brian.
Hey, well, Brian, we appreciate it, brother. Everything going well?
Yeah. Auburn plays Missouri tonight.
Everything's good. Auburn plays Missouri
Well, I think they play at 2 o'clock, Brian.
They do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah. Thanks for calling in, Brian. Appreciate it. I'm going to tell you, that's probably jokes on me. Brian says he's going to rush for 208. By God,
if he runs for 208, I quit. If Cam Newton watch him break an 80-yard run on the first play of the game or something, I don't know. It just Brian calls in because he's well on his way to his 208. So I told you. So, but anyway, SEC recruiting rankings. Luke, Alabama finishes 1. Look, now Alabama, for a majority of the day, it didn't look like they were going to be able to take that number 1 spot again. LSU and Florida fell. Auburn rose. Ole Miss kind of hung where you thought Ole Miss had a shot at being the number 1 recruiting class.
I'm going to tell you, if Ole Miss had been able to get Jeffrey Simmons, who's a 5-star by most accounts.
Did you think it was odd I'm going to cut you off on this. Do you think it was odd that A.J. Brown came out and said that he felt like he wasn't wanted at Mississippi State? He said, they didn't act like they wanted me.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you.
You think that was a gamesman kind of on his part?
I don't know what exactly is going on there. I can tell you, I think A.J. Brown is a wide receiver, and wide receivers generally have more of a me first. Yes, more of a me first attitude.
He was the one from Starkville. So.
And I don't think that Mississippi State ignored him at all. But I'm interested to see where the rest of this stuff with Ole Miss goes before I make a lot of comments. But I feel like Mississippi State, obviously, they paid enough attention to Jeffrey Simmons, who oddly is closer to the Ole Miss situation. I mean, everybody thought Jeffrey Simmons was Ole Miss or Alabama. There were all those quote unquote crystal ball picks coming in for one of the two. Okay. And when I watched it on a live stream, by the way, I love social media and watching it on live stream, but it is interesting. You watch it on Periscope, and so you may have people jump in front of the camera at the last minute while they're selecting something, and you just hear a bunch of cheers, and all of a sudden the phone's going crazy, and you don't know who committed to where. But it was watching Jeffrey Simmons. It was from a distance. The guy was standing to his right and maybe 10 yards away. Okay. So, and it's on a camera phone, so it's not the best quality. He said, want to thank everybody and thank God and thank this and thank that, just like everybody else does. And then he picked the hat up and he put it on. And I said, oh, is that Crimson? Wait a minute. But the Mississippi people are kind of cheering. And what did he put on? I didn't know Mississippi State was in the equation anymore, Brett. I mean, I'm telling you, again, it's one of those that blew me away where I knew Mississippi State was on the list but I mean, a lot of people are on the list.
That's right.
And he picked Mississippi State. It blew me away. I was all prepared to come on our recruiting special and talk about how poorly a job Mississippi State had done in recruiting. And they get Jeffrey Simmons, and it turns my whole attitude around about it.
Well, it just tells you what one guy can do to a class. I think that helped Auburn get knocked up into the top 10 on 3 out of 4 with Derrick Brown. I mean, you get the number 1 player in Georgia, another boost to the defensive line. Let's run down those classes, Luke, real quick.
Okay, nationally.
According to 24/7?
This is all 24/7, but this is the composite, so I think this is more of a good representation, all the services combined.
Okay, there you go.
So Alabama 1, Florida State 2, LSU 3, Ohio State 4, Michigan 5, Ole Miss 6, Georgia 7. Southern Cal at 8 was a bit of a surprise, though they always get talented kids. They only signed 20, and then Auburn at 9, and Auburn only signed 21, and Clemson at 10, and they only signed 20. So, but maybe they just don't have the room because, I mean, there's some hard and fast rules.
Sure.
You can only have so many players on your roster. Texas at 11. Texas was one of the big stories of national side.
30-something to –
yeah. They made some big moves. They stole a linebacker, a 5-star linebacker from LSU. I think that also moved LSU back down. UCLA at 12. They ended up getting a guy that Alabama really wanted, Mike Juarez, out of the Los Angeles area, linebacker. But Alabama did okay linebacker-wise. I'll tell you something. There are some names that Alabama ended up passing on late in the class, and I guess they had to roll the dice because they were hoping for A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown was one of my most coveted recruits that I wanted, and Jeffrey Simmons was up there too. But I would have loved if Alabama had been able to get a kid named Dontavius Jackson out of Texas who ended up signing with Florida State, and I feel quite certain he wanted to come to Alabama, and Alabama said we were full. But, it goes to show you that the coaches don't know sometimes. You can watch some of these war rooms, Brett, and a player, I can tell you, I'm not going to throw a kid under the bus. I feel very, very solid that a kid told our coaching staff he was coming, and he ended up signing somewhere else. And, the coaching staff's just like, we got played. I mean, that's just how it works sometimes. I know that Florida State is pretty well publicized. A kid named, I think it's Shavar Emanuel. Florida State told him he was committed to Florida, said, keep telling Florida you're committed, and then on signing day, just sign with us. That's exactly how that went down. So coaching staffs are in on it sometimes.
Oh, yeah, they are. I mean, Andy and I talked about it on Sports Call yesterday. That story came out. It's public knowledge. They got played.
Yeah.
And look, I'm going to say this, and I know it's an Auburn, Alabama thing, but I think Auburn's been played, whether you want to think it or not, and it's worked out for Alabama. I don't know if they had anything to do with Reuben Foster. I do think that was kind of played. I do think T.J. Yeldon may have been played, and I'm not too sure about Rashaan Evans. I mean, I really think that, maybe there was not a very good relationship with Allen Evans and Auburn. I mean, he left kind of not on good terms, so he didn't really have a tie to Auburn anymore. I mean, he played there, but didn't really have a tie. So I kind of saw that as hurting Auburn more than it being a legacy kind of deal, like we see with others.
And he was never committed.
Well, no, he never was committed. But Reuben Foster and really the one that probably the play of all plays, if you're looking at between Alabama and Auburn, was T.J. Yeldon. You had interviewed him at the Alabama-Mississippi game. I mean, he told me he said, I'm excited about getting down there early, getting ready to play Clemson. Next week he was Alabama.
But, every year I go to the Alabama-Mississippi All-Star game. Every year I interview somebody. Every year they tell me where they're going. Every year they sign somewhere else.
There you go.
That's how it works.
Keep your streak going.
We'll be back in just a minute with our final segment of the Saturday Sports Countdown.
Y'all are clear.
Placement and everything.
Glad y'all got him
LMG can
and Brent
handle it
Calloway.
all. For ease of time, cutting edge, results. Think LMG, Lee Marketing Group, your comprehensive marketing solution.
Don't let pests take your house or business over. Wave the red.
Y'all are live.
And as we get ready to sign off here on Saturday Sports Countdown, you said it starts 88 hours of Super Bowl coverage this week. I mean, and last week.
That's ridiculous.
88 just on the NFL Network. All right, that didn't count everywhere else. So, but yeah, if you're ready for Super Bowl 50, all the networks have been ready since last Sunday.
Brett, we were talking about recruiting, and we'll wrap it up. We were talking about getting played by, and that's just the way, that's the world we live in.
Let me name the list real quick. I mean, I totally forget, after a certain amount of time, how many we have been. And look, fool me once, shame on you. As George Bush said, fool me twice, can't get fooled again. I don't think that was how he was really supposed to say it. But anyway, I had to throw that out there. I thought that was one of the funnier things. But Brent Calloway and Peaches, that whole thing, let's go put him in a closet somewhere, hide him away. He'll sign in.
Peaches and Herb, exactly.
He worked out good for y'all. We're glad. TJ Yeldon did work out very well. Reuben Foster, D-liner, that was a back and forth deal out of Muscle Shoals. He ended up transferring.
He's at Arkansas State.
Yeah, ended up leaving Alabama too. And then, of course, probably the biggest one was Cyrus Quanja, which was really weird all the way around. I don't think his brother was at Alabama, and then all of a sudden he goes on stage and says he's going to Auburn. And man, I was like, everybody. And of course, the facts never came through, and then it was rescinded and all that kind of stuff. I think this year's play attempt for Alabama against Auburn was Matt Wilson. I think Matt Wilson was kind of trying to get down to Auburn and do that.
He was a bad actor then.
Well, he was, and Auburn finally said, "Hey, look, buddy, you just go on. Well, you take a hike. Maybe Auburn's learned their lesson with some of these guys.
Well, maybe so, but I'll tell you another one that I was actually moderately not really concerned, but I had a sliver of doubt there towards the end. With Ben Davis.
No, come on.
Let me tell you why. Because I did feel like I actually talked to some Alabama insiders. They said, look, he may want to do his own legacy. That's out there. And I think he did have some thought about it. I think Ben Davis and all the Auburn moderators that we know, like a Jason Caldwell, they've been nothing but complimentary of him and his family. They've been great, and they're good people. So I think that they're not going to string people along. And I think when he went to Auburn with an open mind, just like he went to Notre Dame with an open mind, and he did all these things. And Georgia, too. And Georgia, with Kirby Smart up there, I mean, he had cause to think about him. But I felt better when before the press conference, again, I'm watching a lot of these on Periscope.
You see the woman in the back there with a houndstooth dress on?
No, that wasn't it. It was his mama sitting next to him. And his mama, they start playing all the fight songs for the 5 schools. And they get to Auburn's, and she starts doing like this. She goes, oh, that's Auburn's. And she starts falling out on the floor laughing. I said, I think we got him.
Well, let me just say this. And then by the time she put those gloves on and held them up for 840th time in front of Ben Davis's face, I was like, all right, I've had enough of this. I mean, it's like, is this his signing day or hers?
That's funny. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Quick prediction, Brett.
I had it, I think I said 31-14 Carolina.
You know what? Brian, I'm with you, brother. Carolina 58, Denver 10, Cam Newton 208 yards rushing. Why not? Brian, me and you to the end, brother. See you next week.